Okay, whenever you're ready, Theory.
So in the 1980s, what was social life like? What were your hobbies and what were your favourite things to do?
Right, in the 80s, I was living in France, in Paris, and come from a big family, so it was more family parties and so on. But there was not many things going on for the young people. We just go home. Yeah.
And then you moved to London?
Yes, and then I came in London, well, because at 15 I fall in love with a boy. But we were dating until I was 19 and decided to come over and get married.
And that was, when was that?
In 84.
And so once you moved over, what was social life like then? What sort of things would you do in London and what would happen?
Well, I was, because I couldn't speak the language at the time properly, so I have to learn already, so I have to go to school. And also then I got pregnant, my first child, and then medically I had to learn all these words, so doctors and everything else. And then I made friends when I had my baby, going to baby clinics and things like that, so that's why I kind of expanded. And got my first job in a factory, making handbags because of the language really issues. So. But I quickly learned and I moved on to work in a nursery with children, and that really, really helped me for my, to get forward.
Brilliant.
What were your memories of the riots in the 1980s and what was the aftermath?
Really, when the riot happened here, isn't it? That was in 85. Which year was that? 85. That where my son was born. I was very much going back to France, back and forward to France as well to see my family there. So when it happened, I was in France. I was nowhere here. I was shocked. I was devastated. What happened? Yeah.
What were your memories in the 1980s about the unemployed and the employed, and how would you go about getting a job?
I would say I had no problem really. Whatever I wanted to do, there was always an open door, even though I was coming from another country. It was very easy. I think it's to do with the individual, isn't it? If you want something, you go out and get it, and focus on what you want in life. Yeah, and everything is possible. And my dad always said, if you want something, you go and get it.
And so, was there a lot of unemployment around, or did you feel like people mostly had jobs, or?
No, I didn't feel the unemployment was a problem really. No.
No. And what you were saying before about what sort of jobs you had, what were your jobs like? What jobs did you have, and what were the sort of conditions, and was it well paid and that sort of thing?
Yes, I mean, maybe I was fortunate. I had a brilliant, lovely boss, which like a sister to me, and very supporting, and I was really well paid, and I didn't feel that stress we have here, the young people, because I got a daughter now with their children. I can see how hard it is for them. Yeah, it's much harder nowadays.
What was the communication like between the police and black people with the police in the 1980s?
I would say in London I didn't feel it as bad as it was in France, because I can't compare the both. I would think I found more racism in Paris than in London. Yeah.
So can you tell us a little bit about the police in Paris?
The police in Paris, they judge by your physique straight away. And they're very, I think because there's so much racism and anybody can attack you, you don't feel comfortable or, ready to go alone outside in the dark, for example. As here, when I came over here, I could go out in winter, even when it's dark at 5, 6 o'clock, I feel safe. But in Paris, I never felt safe.
Interesting. Is that all?
Yeah, that's all.
Is that all? What about housing? Whereabouts did you live? Like, what sort of housing did you live in London? Was it a council flat? Did you own it? All that sort of stuff.
When I first came, I lived with my in-laws, so it was in a house. So I was in a lovely Victorian house. But then obviously we sold the house and we had to move on and found our own place. And then we moved to a flat, housing flat. Yeah.
And what was it like? Was it?
It was hard for me because I've always been in the house, and there was no lift, there was stairs, and plus I had 2 young children, and yeah. But because I was younger, I didn't feel it as bad.
And was there any fear of crime, or was you talk about not being as worried to leave the house at night? Yeah, did you have any fear of crime at all?
No. Even though I was living in an estate, everybody was, communicating, and we talk, neighbours watch, over you, and, if somebody knock on my door and say, oh, certain persons describe it to me and say they knock on your door or whatever. So it was very, the connection between neighbours was really, really good. Yeah.
That's brilliant. Anything else, Sydney? Tea? That's brilliant.